The morning sunrise over Kitui, with an almost ironic clarity, casting long shadows over the red earth paths and acacia trees. Birds called from the treetops, and distant hills were touched with soft gold. But beneath the serene surface, tension simmered. Yesterday's mishaps at the festival had left quiet ripples through the community. Nafula sensed it immediately. Her father's gaze was heavier than usual at breakfast, and Wanjiku's playful teasing carried an undercurrent of concern. Even the children approached Jean-Pierre with caution. Trust, she knew, was a delicate bridge. One wrong step and it could collapse. Jean-Pierre felt the weight of it too. Helping the boy with the basket at the festival was innocent, but he could see now that actions carried meaning far beyond intent. Today, he would accompany Nafula to a neighboring homestead to record oral histories, a responsibility that would test not only his understanding but also his ability to navigate subtle social nuances. The walk was quiet, broken only by rustling leaves and distant roosters. Jean-Pierre followed Nafula closely, listening intently to her guidance. Today is about observation, she said softly. Listen first, speak later. Let respect lead your steps. He nodded. Humility would be his greatest ally. At the homestead, Mama Charo greeted him warmly but with measured curiosity. Her sharp eyes scanned Jean-Pierre, assessing him. Nafula introduced him, emphasizing his intent to honor the stories of the community. I am here to listen and learn, he said, bowing slightly. I hope to honor your stories and wisdom. Mama Charu steadied him. Words can speak truth, but actions speak louder. We will see if your heart is as ready as your voice. The day unfolded with careful pacing. Jean-Pierre observed, asked questions only when invited, and followed Nafula's guidance. Stories of resilience, love, betrayal, and triumph flowed, and with each tale, he felt a deeper connection to the village, to its people, and to Nafula, whose storytelling left him in awe. But tension resurfaced when a young man approached, suspicious of Jean-Pierre. You are not from here, he said bluntly. I am a guest of Nafula. I mean no harm. I only wish to learn and honor these stories. Nafula stepped forward. He is here with respect. His actions will show his intentions. Even so, skepticism lingered. Later, while assisting with a communal meal, Jean-Pierre inadvertently disrupted the portioning system. Frustration rippled quietly among the villagers. Whispers spread. Elders exchanged glances. Nafula guided him aside. Step back. Observe first. Speak last. Let patience be your guide. Breathing deeply, Jean-Pierre understood that integration wasn't just participation. It was attentiveness, restraint, and a nearly intuitive awareness of social rhythm. By evening, relief mingled with reflection. The villagers resumed their routines, and Jean-Pierre felt enlightened by the day's lessons, the interplay of respect, responsibility, and cultural nuance. As they walked home, Nafula took his hand. She said softly, You did well, not because you succeeded in everything, but because you observed, reflected, and learned. Mistakes aren't fatal if your heart is willing to grow. I am learning, he whispered, and I feel something growing between us, something I want to nurture carefully. Nafula's chest tightened with hope and caution. Love required patience, wisdom, and courage in a world that scrutinized every gesture. The first rays of dawn stretched across Kitui, spilling golden light over the rolling hills. The air smelled of wet earth, mingled with a faint perfume of blooming acacias. Yet, despite the serenity, tension lingered in Nafula's household. Omondi, her father, had called a family meeting early. Jean-Pierre had been invited, a rare honor, yet heavy with expectation. The room was small but solemn. Omondi, Nafula, her elder brother Baraka, Wanjiku, and a few respected village elders. Their eyes were keen, their expressions measured, and every breath felt laden with scrutiny. Jean-Pierre entered cautiously, bowing in respect. He had grown accustomed to observing, listening, and treading lightly, but the gravity of this moment pressed on him. Nafula stood close, her hand brushing his arm, a subtle reassurance. Omondi's voice was deliberate. Jean-Pierre, you have spent several weeks here. Integration is not merely effort. It is understanding values, responsibilities, and the rhythms of this community. You must demonstrate sincerity, wisdom, humility, and endurance. Jean-Pierre nodded. I understand, sir. I intend to act with care, respect, and awareness. Baraka's gaze sharpened. And your intentions toward Nafula? Jean-Pierre swallowed. I care for her deeply. I do not wish to disrupt her world. I hope to support and walk alongside her if her family and community allow it. The elders exchanged silent glances. Omondi softened slightly, though vigilance remained. Words are not enough. You will be tested. Trust must be earned through consistent action, respect, and patience. Only then will acceptance come. Jean-Pierre's heart steadied. I am ready. The day's first real test arrived, a journey to a distant homestead where Mama Zawadi, a revered storyteller, preserved the region's history. Jean-Pierre would need to navigate unfamiliar customs and demonstrate humility before someone deeply respected by the community. The village hummed with life around them, children laughing in the fields, roosters crowing, leaves rustling in the breeze. Jean-Pierre followed Nafula closely, attuned to her subtle guidance. Mama Zawadi greeted them firmly yet warmly. Stories are not words. They carry culture, history, and identity. Listen with your heart and act with humility. I will honor your stories, Jean-Pierre said, bowing deeply. Hours passed in quiet observation. Tales of ancestors, battles, loves, and endurance wove a tapestry of Kitui's soul. Nafula helped him understand the subtle meanings behind every gesture and story. Yet challenges arose. A villager, unfamiliar with Jean-Pierre, confronted him, his gaze sharp, voice questioning. Why are you here? Jean-Pierre remained composed. I am here to learn and honor your culture, not to impose mine. Tension eased slowly, though the undercurrent of scrutiny lingered. Integration, he realized, was ongoing, requiring constant respect, humility, and awareness. By evening, they returned home, tired but enriched. Nafula led him to a quiet space near her recording room, where crickets sang under a fading sun. Today was significant, she said softly. You observed, respected, and acted with humility, but integration is continuous. Every day brings new challenges, new tests, and new opportunities to show sincerity. Jean-Pierre took her hand. I understand. I am willing to face every challenge, not just for acceptance, but because I care for you, for this life we are beginning to share. Nafula squeezed her hand, both hope and caution in her eyes. Love, she knew, was fragile. One careless move could extinguish its warmth. Under the star-lit sky, they sat together, aware that every action mattered, every word carried weight, and every choice shaped the trust they were building. The morning dawned grey over Kitui, clouds hanging low as if anticipating a storm. The air was heavy and humid, carrying the scent of earth and distant smoke from cooking fires. Jean-Pierre awoke with a restlessness he could not shake. Though he had grown accustomed to the rhythms of the village, he felt a subtle tension in the household. Glances were careful, greetings measured, and even the children's usual cheer carried caution. Nafula, as always, moved with grace, but her own mood was quieter than usual. The storm from yesterday, the festival mishaps, and the family meeting still lingered in the air, a reminder that trust, while growing, remained delicate. Their first task was visiting the local school, where Nafula recorded storytelling sessions and conducted workshops for children. Jean-Pierre had been invited to observe and assist, a chance to deepen his integration and demonstrate commitment. The school buzzed with energy, children laughing, voices overlapping, the rhythmic clatter of small feet on worn floors. Jean-Pierre followed Nafula carefully, matching her pace, listening, responding only when invited. Mama and Jerry, the teacher, studied him closely. "Visitors are welcome," she said, "but respect for the children and our ways is paramount. Will you act with care?" "I will," Jean-Pierre answered earnestly. "I am here to learn, not to disrupt." The morning passed smoothly until a miscommunication turned the quiet rhythm upside down. Jean-Pierre, helping a child with a recording device, accidentally adjusted the settings. A loud static burst echoed through the room. Some children cried out. Tension rippled instantly. Teachers exchanged concerned glances. Jean-Pierre froze, realizing his error. His face flushed. He hurried to correct the device, muttering apologies. Nafula stood beside him, her voice calm. "It was an accident," she said gently. "He meant no harm. Mistakes are part of growth." The tension eased slightly, but Jean-Pierre felt the weight of scrutiny more keenly than ever. Even small errors could affect perception and trust in ways he hadn't anticipated. As they walked back through the village, the sun pressed down, sharp shadows cutting across red earth paths. Villagers whispered, subtle, almost imperceptible, yet unmistakable. Jean-Pierre felt the familiar sting of being an outsider. Acceptance was never guaranteed, and every day brought new tests. Then an unexpected confrontation. Kitui, a young man known for suspicion of outsiders, stepped onto their path. His posture was challenging. "You've been here long enough," Kitui said, "yet you remain different. You act with intentions you do not fully understand. This village, these people, Nafula herself, these are not toys for you to experiment with." Jean-Pierre felt tension rise, but stayed composed. He said, "I mean no disrespect. I am here to learn, to listen, and to honor this community." Kitui's gaze sharpened. Intentions are not enough. You must show understanding, humility, and respect through action. One mistake, one misstep, and you risk not only your place here, but the trust of those you claim to care for. The confrontation left Jean-Pierre unsettled. Acceptance, he realized, was fragile. Trust could be questioned at any moment, even after weeks of effort. Nafula sensed his unease and gently guided him to her side. "You cannot control others' perceptions," she whispered, "but you can control your actions, your humility, and your willingness to learn. That is where your strength lies." Jean-Pierre nodded, taking a deep breath. "Then I will act carefully, with respect, and never take trust for granted." The sky darkened, clouds rolling overhead as the village settled into evening routines. Jean-Pierre knew the path ahead was more complicated than he had imagined. Love alone was not enough. Patience, humility, and resilience were essential. And sometimes, even his best intentions would be tested by misunderstanding, skepticism, or the weight of expectation. Morning air in Kitui was heavy, almost thick with tension. Jean-Pierre could feel it the moment he stepped outside. The village seemed quieter than usual, but the undercurrent of unease was unmistakable. Something had shifted. Something delicate had been fractured. Nafula walked beside him, her hand lightly resting on his arm, a gesture meant to reassure, yet carrying a silent warning. Today, she seemed to say, would not be easy. The villagers were wary. The recent misunderstandings, small as they were, had left ripples, and those ripples had grown. Their destination was the market square, where yesterday's festival had left a small storm behind. The distribution of goods had gone awry, creating confusion that some villagers whispered about, some elders frowned upon. Kitui, ever suspicious, had whispered his doubts like sparks to dry leaves, and the result was tension thick enough to touch. Jean-Pierre, Nafula said softly, her voice steady but serious. This is delicate. Your presence can either calm them or inflame the fire. Speak only when necessary. Act with care. Always defer to the elders. This is more than a task. It's a test of character. Jean-Pierre nodded, absorbing every word. He understood now that this wasn't just about fixing yesterday's mistake. It was about earning trust, step by step, gesture by gesture. When they arrived at the square, the villagers were gathered in small groups, voices low, brows furrowed. And there, at the center, stood Kitui. His gaze found Jean-Pierre immediately, sharp and accusing. You are here again, Kitui said, his tone biting. And confusion follows you. Do you truly understand the weight of your actions, or are you just a foreigner pretending to belong? Jean-Pierre met his eyes calmly. I know my presence has caused concern, he said, his voice quiet but firm. I did not intend harm. I am here to learn, to listen, and to make things right. Kitui's eyes narrowed. Intentions are easy. Actions, that's what matters. Show understanding, or perhaps you do not belong here at all. Nafula stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. Jean-Pierre comes with respect. He is learning our ways, our responsibilities. Mistakes happen, but he has humility and a willingness to grow. Do not let fear or suspicion cloud your judgment. The elders murmured among themselves, weighing her words carefully. Omondi watched from a distance, unreadable, silent. After a long pause, he spoke. Actions matter. Learning requires patience from both teacher and student. Jean-Pierre, you will help redistribute the goods under the elders' guidance. Speak only when invited. Follow instructions without hesitation. Jean-Pierre inclined his head. I understand, he said, quietly grateful. And so the process began. Step by step, Jean-Pierre moved carefully, assisting with the redistribution, listening to the elders, correcting mistakes without drawing attention. Every moment was a lesson in humility. Every interaction a reminder of the fragility of trust. Even with his care, tension lingered. Kitui's gaze was sharp, ready to pounce on any misstep. Villagers whispered doubts, yet Jean-Pierre persevered, guided by Nafula's steady hand, determined to act with integrity. By late afternoon, the work was complete. The elders nodded in approval. The villagers, still wary, returned to their routines. Jean-Pierre felt a cautious relief. He had navigated the storm without inflaming it. As they walked home, the first drops of rain fell, cool and gentle. Jean-Pierre reflected on the day, the subtle power of perception, the importance of humility, and the delicate art of aligning intentions with action. Nafula squeezed his hand lightly. She said, you did well, but remember, this path isn't just about navigating the village. It's about navigating hearts, trust, and respect. Today was one test. There will be more. Jean-Pierre nodded. I am ready, he whispered, for the challenges, the scrutiny, the effort it takes to earn your trust and the trust of this community. That evening, the storm intensified outside. Inside, the air was warm, yet charged. Jean-Pierre and Nafula sat near the recording room, listening to rain lash against the roof, reflecting on the day. I see now, Jean-Pierre said softly. Love is not just connection. It is responsibility, awareness, and endurance. I cannot rely on feelings alone. Nafula's eyes softened, though her vigilance remained. Trust is fragile. Love is fragile. You must prove every day that you are worthy, not just of my heart, but of the lives, stories, and culture around us. Jean-Pierre held her hand. I will. Every challenge, every test, every step of this path, I will walk it with you. I will not falter. Kitui was eerily quiet. The storm had passed, leaving the earth damp and the air heavy with the scent of rain. Everything seemed calm, almost too calm. Jean-Pierre felt it in his chest, a subtle tension, a lingering unease that didn't belong to the weather. Nafula moved with her usual grace, but today her calm carried hints of concern. Her pauses, the subtle furrow of her brow, the careful way she adjusted her steps, all told Jean-Pierre that something was wrong. He could feel it in the rhythm of the village, in the glances exchanged, in the hushed whispers trailing them like shadows. They started the day at the river, where Nafula collected recordings of local songs and stories. The river, swollen from the rains, roared with energy, tumbling over stones and carrying a warning in its relentless flow. Jean-Pierre followed, careful to respect her space, to watch and learn. It was here, in the middle of storytelling and song, that the first shadow appeared. A young villager approached, nervous but deliberate, holding a small envelope marked with the symbol of the local council. Nafula, the villager said quietly, this was left for you. It concerns your friend. Nafula took the envelope, her fingers brushing over it lightly. She glanced at Jean-Pierre, her eyes guarded. We should read this in private, she whispered. They moved to a secluded spot by the riverbank. The sound of rushing water acted as a shield against prying eyes. Nafula broke the seal and unfolded the letter, her expression shifting from curiosity to disbelief to concern. Jean-Pierre leaned closer. What is it? He asked, tense. Nafula's voice was quiet, cautious. It claims someone in the village has been spreading false stories about you, accusations that you've been manipulating the community for personal gain, that your intentions are not genuine. A chill ran through Jean-Pierre's chest. But that's not true, he whispered, disbelief and frustration mingling in his voice. Nafula's eyes softened, but concern lingered. I know, but perception can be more powerful than truth. Fear, suspicion, jealousy, any of these can twist the story. We must tread carefully. This doesn't just affect the villagers' view of you, it could affect my family's trust as well. The rest of the day became a careful dance of observation, restraint, and patience. Jean-Pierre moved deliberately, offering help only when invited, speaking only when necessary, watching each reaction, reading each expression. Every glance felt heavier now, every whisper a potential threat to the fragile trust he had begun to build. Kitui's scrutiny never wavered. The rumors gave him ammunition. His eyes followed Jean-Pierre like a hawk tracking prey. And still, Jean-Pierre persevered, leaning on Nafula's guidance, determined to demonstrate his sincerity through action, not words. By late afternoon, Nafula led him back home. Her face reflected both caution and protective concern. We need to address this carefully. My family, the elders, they need to see your sincerity, not just hear it. You will show them through consistent action, through integrity. Accusation alone is not enough. That evening, a tense family meeting unfolded. On Monday, Wanjiku and Baraka gathered, their expressions guarded, skeptical, and curious. Nafula explained the letter, the rumors, and the possible threat it posed to Jean-Pierre's reputation. Omonde's gaze was steady. Rumors are powerful, but so are actions. Words can mislead. Actions reveal the truth. Jean-Pierre, if you are to remain a part of this village and our lives, you must prove through your deeds that your intentions are genuine, that your respect for this community is unwavering. Jean-Pierre met his gaze directly. "I will," he said firmly. "I care for Nafula, for this village, and for the people here. Every day, in every action, I will prove my sincerity and earn their trust." Baraka leaned forward, skeptical. "Actions are necessary, yes, but vigilance is also required. One mistake could undo everything. Trust, once broken, is difficult to repair." Later that night, under the dim glow of an oil lamp, Jean-Pierre and Nafula sat together, rain drumming against the roof. His mind raced, replaying the events of the day, the whispers, the subtle betrayals. "I never imagined it would be this difficult," he admitted softly. "I thought sincerity and effort would be enough, but perception, fear, and suspicion weigh heavily, sometimes more than intentions." Nafula's hand rested on his cheek, grounding him. "Love, trust, belonging, they are never simple. They must be earned, protected, nurtured. You've taken the first steps, but more tests are coming. Shadows will always try to creep in. We face them together with patience, care, and courage." Jean-Pierre leaned into her touch, a mix of vulnerability and determination coursing through him. A fragile calm hung in the air, almost too quiet after the storm of the past few days. Jean-Pierre awoke to the soft hum of village life, the distant crow of a rooster, the faint chatter of women fetching water. But beneath the familiar sounds, a tension lingered, subtle but unmistakable. The rumors that had unsettled the community were still alive, shadowing every glance, every word, every interaction. Jean-Pierre knew today would require more than patience. It would demand courage. Nafula appeared at his side, steady and reassuring, but her eyes carried a hint of worry. "We need to address the rumors directly," she said softly. "You must confront the source, but with respect. Anger or defensiveness will only make things worse." Jean-Pierre nodded, swallowing the knot of anxiety in his chest. "I understand," he replied. "I want to face this, for you, for the village, and for us." Their first stop was Mama Zawadi's home, the village elder whose wisdom commanded respect. She had witnessed the tension unfold and agreed to mediate. Her expression was calm but firm, eyes sharp with scrutiny. "Rumors can poison trust," Mama Zawadi said. "Jean-Pierre, speak with clarity, humility, and honesty. Listen as much as you speak. The village must feel your sincerity, and those spreading falsehoods must see the consequences." Jean-Pierre bowed slightly. "I will," he said, steadying himself against the rising tide of nerves. Next, they approached Kito's home. The young man waited, his posture defensive, arms crossed, suspicion sharp in his gaze. A small crowd of villagers had gathered nearby, drawn by curiosity, murmuring quietly as they watched. Jean-Pierre inhaled, recalling Nafula's guidance. His hands were open, a gesture of honesty. "Kito," he began, voice calm, respectful. "I understand there have been concerns about my presence and intentions. I want to address them directly. I care deeply for Nafula, for this village, and for the trust we are building. I would never act to harm or manipulate anyone here." Kito's eyes narrowed. "Words are easy," he said, sharp and skeptical. "Actions reveal truth. Why should I believe you?" Jean-Pierre met his gaze steadily. "Because I am accountable," he said. "I will act with transparency, humility, and patience. I will show my sincerity not just in words, but in every choice I make. If I fail, I will accept responsibility, but I ask only for the chance to prove myself." The villagers waited in tense silence, every ear straining, every eye focused. Kito's voice finally softened, though caution lingered. "Rumors are dangerous," he said. "They spread quickly, and truths can be hidden beneath layers of fear and suspicion. I will watch you, Jean-Pierre, but for now, you have a chance to prove yourself. One misstep, and trust will be questioned again." Jean-Pierre inclined his head, relief and determination mingling. "He understands," he said quietly. "I will not falter." Nafula's hand found his, a steady anchor amid lingering tension. "This is an important step," she whispered. Trust is a fragile flame. It can grow stronger or be extinguished by a single mistake. We must continue with care, respect, and patience. The rest of the day became a careful dance of observation and subtle action. Jean-Pierre helped with chores, organized a small storytelling session for the children, and spoke only when invited. Every gesture was deliberate, every word measured but sincere. By late afternoon, a sense of cautious relief settled over the village. Kito's watchful gaze remained, but the immediate tension eased. Jean-Pierre realized the confrontation hadn't erased suspicion entirely, but it had opened a path to dialogue, understanding, and gradual acceptance. That evening, as sunset painted the sky in warm hues and the first stars appeared, Jean-Pierre and Nafula sat together near the recording room, listening to the chirping of crickets. "You were brave today," Nafula said, pride in her voice. "You faced suspicion, rumors, and confrontation with honesty and respect. That's not easy, especially in a world that is not your own." Jean-Pierre held her hand firmly. "I care for you, Nafula. I care for this village. I will earn trust, not just today, but every day." Nafula smiled, vigilance tempered by warmth. "Then we continue, step by step, test by test, until trust is no longer fragile and our love can withstand whatever challenges lie ahead." As night deepened, rain began to fall again, soft and steady, drumming against the roof. Jean-Pierre lay awake, contemplating the delicate balance of trust, love, and cultural understanding. Every day would bring new tests, opportunities to prove sincerity, patience, and endurance. Nafula too lay awake, reflecting on the day. She recognized Jean-Pierre's courage and sincerity, yet the shadows of suspicion lingered. Love, she knew, demanded vigilance, patience, and unwavering integrity.